Hello, everyone. Please keep eating, but we're going to move into the next section of the program with our lunch keynote speakers. Before we get to them, though, I want to introduce our main supporter, Ed Choice. So Robert Enlow is going to come up and say a little bit about Ed Choice, and then he'll draw some more names for fantastic prizes. So, Robert.
There is no such thing as a free lunch, said Milton Friedman, so I'm going to give you 2 seconds of conversation and then get to pick some stuff. Good afternoon. My name is Robert Enlow, and I'm the president and CEO of Ed Choice. Ed Choice, since 1996, has been dedicated to one simple principle. All families should be free to choose all educational environments that are available to them, or that are not available, or that are coming available to them, and using public resources to do so. Milton Friedman first created that concept in 1955, and it has been growing ever since. Just so you know, Ed Choice does 4 things. We do research and thought leadership. Raise your hand if you've actually read something from Ed Choice or looked at our website or any kind of involvement, right? So quite a few of you, that's great. We do training and outreach, we do policy and advocacy, and we do legal defense. So we're excited by that. What I want to quickly share with you all is that when we started at Ed Choice in 1996, there were 5 private school choice programs in America serving less than 10,000 kids. Today, there are 83 programs operating in 33 states, the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico serving now over 1 million children. Right, we've broken the 1 million mark, which is amazing. Nationally, we know that in charter schools, only a quarter of the states in 1996 had charter schools. Today, as you heard from Michael, that there are 46 states that have 8,000 charter schools serving 3.7 million kids. We know that magnet schools have been growing. We know that private school choice has been growing. We know that homeschooling has been growing. Nationally, 90% in 1996 attended their district-assigned school. Today, if you look at only the assigned side, not the choice side of public and private schools, only 61% attend their assigned school, right? The rest are attending other public options, charter options, homeschool, private schools, ESAs, everything we can to get more choices. And that's amazing. And increasingly, they're taking up the kind of opportunities that you are providing, right, for kids, which is important. Now, I want to say this because we all know why we're trying to do this, right? We're trying to improve the quality of education in America. 40%, if you believe NAEP scores, are not able to read on grade level. Middle school is often a disaster, right? Kids have so many issues that we all know about, and there's so many issues in our country. So I want to use one analogy as we head into defining this conversation. All of you have heard that if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. That's great. I don't want to know about that anymore. I want to know who owns the pond. And I'll tell you why. Because if you own the pond, you control the means of production. You control what you're educating your kids about, and you're controlling how you're making sure your kids are learning. What you guys are doing and the work you're doing is taking control of the pond and making sure the kids are educated in the way that you see fit or those families see fit. So I want to thank you very much and thank Kennesaw for putting this together and hope to see 800 of you next year. So thank you very much.
And now, I'd like to introduce our featured speakers, Jeff and Starrla Fowler. In 2004, Jeff and Starrla co-founded Veritas Academy, a collaborative school in Austin, Texas, which they led until retiring from their operational positions in the summer of 2023 in order to move to Memphis to live close to their children and their soon-to-arrive first grandchild. Jeff is now the president of Quiddity Consulting, LLC. He served as the head of school of Veritas Academy for 18 years until retiring, though he continues to serve as a member of the school and trustee boards. Starrla is now the director of Leadership Development and Collaborative School Initiatives for the Society for Classical Learning. Since Veritas Academy's inception, Starrla served in various capacities as the academic dean, academic team chair, grammar school head, and School of Logic head, in addition to her continued service on the Veritas board and its governance and nominations committees. So please help me welcome Jeff and Starrla Fowler.
Well, good afternoon. As Eric said, my name is Jeff Fowler, and my wife Starrla and I are honored to join you again this year. While attending last year's conference, we realized that you, maverick dreamers and doers, are our kind of people. There was so much energy and vitality at the conference. It was just inspiring to attend, to be a part of. And I'm glad to say that we get that same sense, that same feeling again this year. So it is a pleasure to be here. This year, Eric invited us to briefly talk about sustainability and succession, about making hybrid and micro schools last. In part, I guess, because the alternative school that we launched 20 years ago in Austin grew into a replicable institution, not a bureaucratic one, but an adaptable organization anchoring our community that has only gotten stronger since we retired from it last summer. That school, Veritas Academy, a classical Christian collaborative school or a hybrid school that is one that actively engages parents in the formation, the education, and instruction of their children. I guess I can skip most of the rest of the introduction because Eric covered that. So I'll just say that, wrap that part up, that we continue to support Veritas Academy's leadership team in Austin with the transition, now wrapping up its second year, the transition that is. The first year with us being there and still in charge, and then this year with us finishing up a leadership development program via monthly visits for training, advising, and mentoring. So we took our time with a nice extended 2-year handoff. We also remain active on the school's governance boards and committees as the last 2 founders who retain perpetual board seats. So with that introduction behind us, let's get into it. Why is building schools to last beyond us vital? First, and selfishly, because we don't want what may become our life's most important work, our professional work, to suddenly vanish, or worse, to languish and consume valuable resources as it dies a slow, agonizing death. What a waste of our intense effort to not leave a lasting legacy, but just an impression that is quickly erased. But more important than our own legacies are the students, families, and communities that we're serving. People make major life choices and changes over their kids' school or their vocation as an educator. So we need to build excellent schools that last and do not unnecessarily disrupt lives. So how do we build something to last? Today, we'll make it easy to remember just 5 of the many factors that contribute to sustainability. All 5 of our 5 are conveniently beginning with the letter P, accompanied by some storytelling for color commentary. Those points are purpose, people, platform, the pursuit of excellence, and passing it on before you're gone.
All right, let's start. Let's start with purpose. First, recognize the need for something different. And for us, it was time with our family and peace for our family. We really had a good thing going. We are 3 children enrolled in a great classical Christian school in Austin, but about the 3rd year, we recognized that we needed something different. We needed more time with our kids, both because we loved them and enjoyed them and wanted to make the most of this limited time that we have with them, and also because we wanted to be their primary influencers. And all of that requires time together. But we also wanted them to learn and to enjoy what it's like to be a part of something bigger than themselves and bigger than our little family. We wanted them to enjoy community. So about that same time that we recognized the need for our family, we also stumbled across a school in the Texas Hill Country with a unique structure, and that was called a university model school. We call that hybrid as well, or sometimes collaborative. They called it university model. But it wasn't classical, which by that time, we were completely enamored of, and it was more than an hour away from our home. So we asked ourselves, could we create something combining this? Create something that has a model that would give our family that gift of time and also provide a rich education in the foundation of wisdom and virtue through that classical approach. So if we were to do this, how would we do it? The answer? Build an alternative school. But we'd never done that before, so we knew that we were going to need some help. And fortunately for us, God was working in the hearts of a few other families, and through a series of serendipitous events, we found each other. But now we had to ask ourselves the question, what is the dream?
We had to think and dream out loud together to begin defining the vision, the future reality that we desired to see and experience someday. The mission is the means by which we will create this vision, and the values are the essential elements, the embodied tenets of the vision, the characteristics that give it meaning. Together, these express the purpose of the school. The purpose drives everything. It's the North Star. Every school founder and leader needs to invest time in defining and internalizing this. It's easy to rush through this step since we're all so eager to start building, but these are the blueprints, and we've got to draw them correctly. The majority of our earliest founder and board meetings were devoted to hammering out and fine-tuning the why this school needs to exist question. This is the only time you'll really get to devote so much time because the tyranny of the urgent will take over. But this is so very important. You need to have a compelling answer for why your school should exist. A common refrain that I make to school boards these days is this: a school board should be constantly asking themselves two questions. One, why do we exist? And two, why do we deserve to continue existing? The first question goes to purpose, the second to effectiveness. So begin with the end in mind. Envision that distant point in the future when your school is fully mature and hitting on all cylinders. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's the spirit of the place? Its ethos. Envision the outcome, the finished product. Describe those students, those graduates, those families. What virtues and values are contained within your vision? Envision the institution or environment that is needed to create such young people. Flesh it out. This becomes the vision, the purpose for which the school exists. It's the most important element of a lasting, impactful entity or movement. It's your identity. Own it. Boldly drive a stake in the ground and unapologetically say, this is who we are and what we're about. And you, personally, better know that you know that you know that you are supposed to create and or run that school. Because if you don't, the inevitable hardships will someday overwhelm you and you'll quit. But if you have that certain knowledge, that certainty of calling, you're much more likely to persevere.
Once you own and can verbalize that purpose, begin to make the vision reality by frequently and regularly reflecting and refining it. At Veritas, we did this in a couple of ways. At every board and executive staff meeting, we devoted time to reading and contemplating about our mission and vision. And this was more than just rotely recalling it or reciting it. In fact, we identified a person for each meeting and assigned them with the task to come prepared to share one aspect of the mission that resonated with them at that particular moment. This made it a regular practice for us to pause and to re-examine almost weekly our purpose, even 20 years later after that purpose was originally written. We also committed to book studies. So every year we had several book studies that unified us around our mission. Some years we focused on the academic side, the classical Christian. On other years we focused more on the organizational health by reading books like Mission Drift and Good to Great. So you own the vision, now share the vision. Share that purpose, often, repeatedly, casting the vision to various constituent groups. Effective transmission comes by repetition. As leaders, we impress the vision, mission, and values on others intentionally, but also subtly, like an impressionist painter who makes small strokes of the brush to eventually create a masterpiece. Tell your story. Stories move hearts. We do this annually at the beginning of the year through our vision night, and then we hit it again midterm with our State of the School address. But we also do this informally. We're often telling our administrators and even our faculty, never waste an opportunity to connect your mission and vision with the activities that are happening. So even if it's just a small gathering of kindergarten parents coming to hear a recitation, that teacher or the administrator needs to take the opportunity to connect that activity with the why. Why are they at your school? Also, in one-on-one conversations, we're always looking for opportunities to weave in our mission and vision, just as a reminder of who we are. So we're imprinting our values and our mission on our people one by one. Our people just can't escape hearing about our mission and vision and values. Protect the school's purpose, your vision. There are consistent revisiting and casting of the vision and mission of Veritas. We constantly remind ourselves that we exist to partner with parents by giving them the gift of time with their children. That was the need that we began with, and that need still exists. That is our school's why. And our successors have embraced that, maybe even more passionately than we have. So our new head of school has made that the theme of the year. Let's share a quote here from Peter Greer in Mission Drift. He says, leaders often first ask what, then they move to how, and finally they transition to why. But great innovators, they start with the why. The order really matters. Everything flows from why. Not only does it motivate others to join you, it also guides what you do, and often more important, what you don't do. So now I pause and I challenge you to continually reflect back on the need, desire, or opportunity that moved you so much to commit the prime years of your life, even this weekend here, to create something new. What was that? Clearly articulate it and define it. Memorialize it. Clarify it as you go. But keep reminding yourself and vocalizing its core tenets, the values it reflects. Speak of these often. They're the basis of your vision and your vision casting. So a couple questions for you. Can you succinctly define your purpose, your why, and your what? What are you doing to promulgate it so that it becomes everyone's shared vision? Absent that, drift and division are certain at some point.
All right, let's talk about people. Attract your who. Go find your tribe, for it's them who will carry your vision, your why, into future generations. That is, if they have truly bought into your vision. I've always appreciated this play on an old proverb. It was probably a Marine who once said, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with many. But if you want to go fast and far, go with a few. Find your few. Starting a new school of any size is a big undertaking. Therefore, recruit heavy lifters. They are drawn to big ideas and usually unafraid of hard work, as long as it is worthwhile work. Invite them to join you in this noble thing and give them some ownership in the shaping of the vision and the building of the school. Seek to surround yourself with people who are better than you in many areas. This takes humility, and genuine humility requires a deep sense of self-awareness and internal security. Build a cohesive team. Find the right people. The why, a compelling vision, often draws the best of the who. Look for the humble, the hungry, and the smart, meaning high EQ or emotional intelligence, according to leadership author Patrick Lencioni.
There you go.
Forgive me. And look for those who get your vision. They really get it. As Jim Collins says in his book, Good to Great, put these right people in the right seats on your bus. Place them in positions to effectively use their giftings. Give them the worthwhile cause and vision, invest in them, and these will become your lifers. They will carry your vision forward. Mentor and equip your teams by being relational. Leadership matters, and it starts with you. So lead yourself well. Be a person of character and integrity. Do what you say you're going to do. Be who you say you're going to be. Endure hardship well. Bad things will happen, People around you and you will fail. Will those hardships destroy you or serve to make you stronger? Welcome adversity for the growth that it produces. Strength comes from struggle. Choose not to be offended, even when warranted. Offense is always a choice. Effective leaders don't have the luxury to wallow in offense and hurt feelings. When leading, followers will imitate you, so be worthy of that imitation. Invest in your leaders and faculty, for what you see in them, you will eventually see in your students. Put before your kids worthy exemplars. Share the vision and increasingly the responsibilities with your staff and rising leaders, looking for opportunities to delegate more decision-making authority as they demonstrate competence. At Veritas, Starrla and I held the reins loosely, never knowing how long we would be there, but never thinking it would be more than just the next few years. We were serial entrepreneurs. I went into this saying 3 and out. 20 years later, we're still in. Therefore, we always ran it in a very collaborative way, which was hard by nature for the both of us because we appreciate the speed and the efficiency of authoritative governance. But we realized that long-term sustainability requires more than just the two of us. We had to build up more leaders in order to build up the organization. Veritas grew to about 700 students as we constantly shared our story, cast the vision, and compelled others to buy in. Whether from on stage or in one-on-one meetings with parents or employees, bits and pieces of our purpose were consistently shared. We recognize that it's our people who will perpetuate the school's vision, mission, and values more so than any policy, procedure, or organizational structure. So we challenge you to consider whether or not you have the right people, people who are as fired up about your vision and your purpose as you are. How are you actively identifying and investing in those folks? And are you consistently impressing upon them the vision and the values of your school?
All right, moving to that third P, platform. Determine the how, the platform or the structure upon which the business, yes it is a business, of your school will be sustainably run over time. Passion, which all of you have, I've heard that today. Passion will get you started, but it won't sustain you. Identify the specifics of how your organization will be structured, run, and governed. Organizational structure matters. It's the solid foundation. Over the past 20 years, we've helped dozens of schools get started, and we've consulted with scores more. We've seen too many schools launch with great passion and promise, only to crash a few years later due to unhealthy or unsustainable structure. In fact, just this month, we've been consulting with a couple of schools. They were thriving schools, at least at one point. One was even 12 years old. But they both experienced a crisis because of some unhealthy structure. So I'll share a few of the common unhealthy practices that we see. We often see the head of school and the board chair being the same person. Those are two distinct roles. They have two sets of responsibilities. You need them both. We sometimes see a school launching as a subsidiary of a church or another school, and that's okay if you're called to do that, but they do this without proper board representation and the proper leader who really gets the vision of the school. But one perhaps that we see the most often is leaning too heavily on one person. Perhaps that's you. That's the Lone Ranger mentality. And it sets the school up for sudden failure when something unexpectedly sidelines the leader. So let's move on to talk about 3 of the important structures that we must have in place. The first is governance structure. You need a unified, committed board or an advisory team. You need that support if you're the leader. You need both to have a distinct and separate responsibility. It's best to have a healthy relationship between the board and the head. The board's job is to protect the mission and vision, while the head's job is to run the operations. They're distinct, but they're both important. The board is responsible for creating and protecting the mission and vision, and the head is responsible for executing the strategic plan that will create the vision. Ideally, the board and the head work collaboratively, contributing to the other, but each maintaining their distinct and important roles. But remember that head of school is the board's one and only employee.
All right, financial structure. Normal operations should be funded entirely from dependably recurring revenue streams, like tuition and fees. And such revenue should always exceed expenses. Sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised. Know that the real cost, which is always higher than you think. So price and resource your school according to the real cost of the services that are being delivered. Err on the side of pricing tuition too high in order to allow for underestimating costs, which almost always happens. For sudden large tuition increases later do much more harm to a school community. Focus on accessibility over affordability. For example, add tuition assistance funding to the operating budget rather than artificially keeping tuition rates low or varying the fund from year to year based on the level of fundraising. Be cognizant of any group effectively subsidizing tuition at your school. Most commonly, this is teachers and administrators who may be paid a fraction of their market value for their work that they do on behalf of the students and the families. Not only is this inherently inequitable and unfair, it can also become an existential threat to the school from over-reliance upon the goodwill of others.
And the third necessary component of structure is that of strategic planning. Plan ahead, 3, 5, 10 years down the road so that you work to accomplish your vision. Be proactive in considering what you hope to accomplish and document that in a strategic plan. And make sure your financial model supports that strategic plan. So if you anticipate adding 50 new students in the next 3 years, consider what are the resources that are needed and plan ahead. Be proactive there. Be distinctive and differentiated. Home in on these and sharpen them as they correlate with your vision. Know your hedgehog concept. That's what Jim Collins calls what you do best. It's also what Robert spoke of today, to leverage your distinctiveness. But know that and work it into your strategic plan and your financial plan. Be different enough to be worthy to last, but possess a useful peculiarity. Last of all, on this point of the structure of the platform, build in structural safeguards that protect your purpose. Make it a high bar to change important things like your vision and mission statements or your bylaws. Here are a few examples of what we've seen or what we've done. You could establish a supermajority or unanimous board vote for certain issues. We have this odd structure of having 2 boards. We have a school board, and then we have a trustee board. That trustee board has the founders on it, and that trustee board is limited to just a small amount of authority, but that is the authority of protecting the mission. So consider ways to protect, to safeguard your mission and vision, but also don't fool yourself. You can do all of this to try to preserve your mission, but if you really want to perpetuate your mission through the next generations, you do it by sharing a noble, transcendent cause that someone else is willing to invest their life into. So moving on to the next P, and I'll be kind of short on this one. So hopefully we're all doing this. Pursue excellence. Pursue excellence because most social structures drift towards mediocrity, and mediocrity rots. View mediocrity in your school the way a house builder sees water penetration in his house. It's the source of future decay and ridiculously costly and painful to repair. A few examples of mediocrity producing actions or inactions could include a high across the board cost of living adjustment that keeps underperforming teachers around too long, or allowing culture creep from the outside, or avoiding conflict, especially when confrontation is called for. Lencioni says that too many schools tend towards artificial harmony when they should have a culture of trust that allows for healthy conflict and debate, which brings about clarity of purpose.
All right, bringing it home with the final P for passing it on before you're gone. This is all about the process of planning for leadership succession, something many leaders avidly avoid. But viewed correctly, that is from the perspective of the school and not the individual leader, succession is an incredible opportunity to cement the school's vision, mission, values, and culture into the next generation. Our insecurities, however, manifest themselves in counterproductive ways. Common among them is a need for control. Control over our circumstances in order to provide a sense, a false sense, I might add, of security. Controlling leadership limits personal and professional growth, impairing sustainability of the school. These kind of leaders often represent an existential threat in and of themselves. We should treat our maturing school like we do our maturing children as they head into and through adolescence and on to young adulthood. If founders and leaders are casting and the people are catching the vision, then the existing leadership won't have to cling to power so tightly, so fearfully. Remember, fellow founders, there is a reason it is sometimes called the death grip. Don't become the foolish founder who inadvertently kills his or her school by being overly controlling, stunting the school's growth and maturity. Let it grow up and start being run by others besides just you. Otherwise, it may just barely outlast your leadership, if at all. Actively plan for succession. We need to be fast-tracking the identification and development of emergent leadership. With the continued explosion of private and in particular hybrid models of education, we simply do not have enough experienced, competent people to effectively lead all these schools. The effort should start with us committing to steward well all of the human resources entrusted to us, prioritizing the development and empowerment of a new wave of young leaders and creating avenues to advance their careers and growth. And this shouldn't be the responsibility of just the head of school. Every leader within a school should be challenged to frequently consider that proverbial bus coming and who is being groomed to succeed them should that bus make their untimely acquaintance. The importance of succession planning, not only does it preserve and continue what has been built, and in such a way as to not mortify us in our future graves, but it also preserves and perpetuates the school's vision and mission. However, there are few things that a leader can do today that cannot be undone by a future leader. To that end, again, the most effective way to perpetuate our schools is to cast the vision into the hearts and minds of others, especially those who succeed us in leadership. This is why the constant vision casting, refining, and storytelling is so important. What we are really trying to do is help someone else create their own vision that incorporates the key elements of the current vision and culture, but groom them to become the kind of leader that the school will need in its next season. At Veritas, we've always done this with our leadership team, most recently with my successor, with whom I would frequently walk and talk as we roamed our country campus, dreaming about what could be. His vision being informed by mine and others who came before him. But it was his vision that was being formed. Vision is better caught than taught. Lastly, the success of a leader is measured in the success of his or her successor and the state of the organization years after that leader's departure. Since the creation of a school is the pinnacle work for many or most school founders, we might as well build these schools to last and certainly outlast us and our immediate successors. Thank you.
So we have a few minutes for questions.
So mine's not so much a question as a comment. I have found an online podcast called Classical Stuff You Should Know, and it is some incredibly dynamic young men who teach at Veritas Academy, and I just want to shout out to those guys. I love that podcast. And as a literature teacher, I have learned tons and brought some of it into my classroom. Highly recommend it. I don't know what you guys had to do with that, but I think just the model inculcated that sort of entrepreneurship with your staff and the love of learning, and I want to thank them through you.
Well, thank you. They'll be happy to hear that. They love hearing stories about that. We go to conferences across the country, and almost inevitably somebody comments on that. What I had to do with it was let them use the classroom below my office. So they recorded every Sunday afternoon and do several hours at a time. Great guys. Great example of people who are lifelong learners and doing it in community with each other. They're not pretentious. They don't pretend to have it all figured out what classical, or more accurately, neoclassical education is these days. But they take us along for that ride, and it is a lot of fun.
I will say also that's an example of us just casting vision. At least one of those we hired pretty much right out of college. He did not have a classical background. He had no education experience, but he has become a lifer.
What he did have was dreadlocks down to here, coming from the Pacific Northwest to Austin, Texas, and I feared for losing my job that second year when I hired this guy.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask a question about platform. When you're talking about dependable sources of revenue and accurately setting tuition rates, obviously every school is a little bit different, but do you have a sense of an ideal range of the amount of the percentage of revenue that tuition should cover?
Yes, I do. For me, it's 100% plus. So here's the background. When we began to start this, we attended 2 national conferences in about the year and a half as we were planning the school before we launched it. My background was corporate finance, M&A, former CPA, and we were blessed to have a board of 4 couples, 8 people. I think 6 of us had either owned or operated businesses. So we all had that kind of mentality that, of course, you earn your keep every year. And so we came into that way, and I remember sitting at both of the conferences by different groups had the same kind of theme, but at one of them, the first one, I was just dumbfounded when they were going around the room indicating the percent of expenses that were covered by tuition. And it was like 50 to 80% was good. And I'm going, okay, is this for real? This is like a date with destiny, not a good destiny. Or you're just making your head of school your full-time promoter and fundraiser. Now, I will say that there are models that type of structure is entirely appropriate, where you are serving a lower socioeconomic demographic that cannot afford tuition. So you go and find other avenues of tuition, but that becomes recurring because you are seeking out foundations and fundraising that you can count on each year. But for a normal school, serving a community that parents work and have income, they should be able to pay for the real cost of delivering that education, and the school should charge that. So that's why I say 100%, because what's not in an operating budget each year are a lot of the capital expenses. What about the savings to build up your cash reserves for that rainy day? So a lot of schools try to target that 105% plus just to start building up those reserves. And that's what we've been able to do over the years. But I will say we've had some very close calls ourselves. When we bought a campus land and had to develop it, I mean, we got in there by the skin of our teeth with all the cost overruns and everything else we encountered. So fortunately, we were prepared for that. And when I had to go back to the community and say, hey, we're running a little short, can you dig a little deeper? They weren't used to me always begging them for money every year.
I'll just add that that's our personal perspective, but also a good resource for you is Independent School Management, ISM, and I think they recognize, or they suggested a minimum 95%.
So we're at time for the third session. So thank you all so much. That was so great. Yeah.